YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football, and week 3 is just about here, and we are talking waiver wires. There were a lot of injuries that's happened this past weekend, so this is probably going to be a decently long list, and I'm sure you guys are going to be very active to see who needs to be picked up for your team to have some success. So let's jump right into it. So again, week 3 is just about here, meaning waivers are very important. There were a lot of injuries that happened this past weekend, and of course, some players that really stood out that should garner some of your attention. So hopefully this list helps you guys out. Of course, if you have questions of who you should pick up or maybe drop, or maybe you're already starting to do some trade activity for your fantasy team, hit me up in the comments down below. And of course, I'll be able to help you guys out. And don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Now, the first player I'm going to mention is going to be Derek Carr. 81% available in Yahoo leagues. What a hot start for Derek Carr and the Saints this season so far. Week 1, a lot of folks thought maybe it was just a fluke game. They had an easy matchup against Carolina, who is not a great team in general. But then they play week 2 against a supposed tough Dallas defense, and Derek Carr and that Saints offense still went off. Carr is currently quarterback 2 so far this fantasy season with 6 touchdowns. And again, there is no offense that is even hotter or close to that as of right now. The Saints, I'm not sure if they're quite real, but as of right now, when it comes to fantasy, the fact that Derek Carr is still out there on waivers is a crime. You should be grabbing him this week. Now, quarterback 1 of the fantasy season so far, Baker Mayfield. Now, of course, Baker Mayfield is obviously very comfortable in this Bucs offense. And again, speaking of a strong, fast start, the Bucs look really, really good. Now, the only thing I would say about Baker Mayfield is the fact that his availability is a lot less. He's only available in 33% of leagues, so there's some concern there, but he is currently quarterback 1 in fantasy as of right now, and that's only because he's got a little bit more rushing yards than Derek Carr. And I like Baker Mayfield a lot this week. His trust in this offense, the continuity, he's got a lot of that swagger back like when he was early on in Cleveland. I think this is a great fit, and I think Baker Mayfield should absolutely be on most people's rosters this week. The fact that he's still available in 33% of leagues is a crime as well. Just like Derek Carr, he should be rostered. Now, jumping into the running back position, I've got Zack Shaw for the Seattle Seahawks. He's available in only 32% of leagues, but Charbonnet is possibly going to be in a full running back RB1 role. Charbonnet was average this past week in week 2, though, as the full starter, filling in for obviously an injured Kenneth Walker. But filling in for Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet was still the top back, and he was able to put up 17 points with some inefficiency. Now, depending on the injury news with Kenneth Walker, and we'll see how things play out, this is something you have to continue to watch. But Charbonnet is definitely a touch dependent back. He's going to get a lot of opportunities his way, which is why he's still someone that should be grabbed. And even if you don't necessarily think he's going to be a star or someone who's going to be someone you need to start, the fact is if you're Kenneth Walker and you've got him on your team, you need to handcuff him with Charbonnet if possible. I'm sure a lot of league mates have probably already grabbed him to kind of use him as trade bait, but again, I would possibly grab him. Another running back I like is Braylon Allen for the New York Jets. He's available in 91% of leagues. Braylon will be receiving plenty of DMs from any Breece Hall owner out there because of what he was able to do this past weekend. And I understand. I have Breece Hall in one of my leagues, and it was very frustrating to see how successful Allen was. In the one game he played so far in the NFL, he was able to produce 22 fantasy points with 2 touchdowns, both in the air and on the ground, and he was used efficiently and effectively in the red zone. Something that a lot of people are probably a little upset with when you're Breece Hall, right? Like, again, if you have Breece Hall on your team, you're going to be upset with how this worked out. Plus, Braylon was very efficient, over 5 yards a carry. Again, he's not going to be someone that's going to go away. I think he can be introduced a lot more in this offense because, again, realistically, it's, Breece Hall, it's Garrett Wilson. That's really the weapons that the New York Jets have. So they're going to probably use both backs. And again, Braylon is going to have a lot more effect. If you're a Breece Hall owner, you've got to make sure you grab Braylon Hall as fast as you can before he's grabbed by anybody else, just for the handcuff reasons, if you can. But again, he's a great value in deeper leagues for sure if you're going to have to start him, but I like him as a nice little handcuff. Another running back is going to be Carson Steel for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's available in 98% of leagues, which is very understandable. But breaking news unfortunately happened on Monday. Isaiah Pacheco will be out at least 6 to 8 weeks. He has a broken fibula, which hopefully heals properly. Poor guy. I love watching Pacheco play, but unfortunately with that, he's going on IR. Steele could be a steal for you. Now, there is the latest news of obviously Kareem Hunt coming to visit Kansas City. They still have, Samaj Perine. We're not sure how Kansas City is going to really utilize this backfield, but if you're going off of what happened in the first 2 weeks, Carson Steel was the backup to Pacheco. And yeah, he's had a fumble, and even after that fumble, he still had opportunities. So that shows that Andy Reid likes him. I do have some concerns of him being really a all-around back. I do think this can turn into a full committee with the fact that Perine can catch passes. Steele's going to be the red zone guy. So we'll see how things play out. But if of all three running backs, if Kareem Hunt does sign, I still think Carson Steel is probably the one I'm going to go after. Kareem Hunt's probably the other if you really are nervous and unsure what's going to happen. Now, honorable mention, I'm going to mention J.K. Dobbins and Jordan Mason. Look, Dobbins is still available in 18% of leagues. He's at over 200-something yards in 2 games. I think 266 yards in the 2 games. He's playing out of his mind right now, and yet he's available in 18% of leagues. And Jordan Mason available in 14% of leagues. He's currently RB6. J.K. Dobbins is RB3. These guys need to be rostered. There should be 0% of a chance of any of these guys being able to be picked up. So again, look at your waivers, see if they're available, make sure you grab those guys. Now going into the wide receiver position, I've got Rashod Shaheed for the Saints as a nice little waiver. He's available in 38% of leagues. He's going into week 2. Shaheed is currently wide receiver 9 so far this season. I bet we all saw that coming, right? We all saw that coming. Now, Shaheed is obviously getting a lot of his points off of very big plays, and he's currently averaging 18.6 points a game. And until he doesn't, at this point, I'm still rostering him, and I'm still putting him in my flex if possible, especially if, again, you probably get points for your kick returns or punt returns. He has that ability as well. Shaheed has been very explosive. He looks really good, and I think right now he's David Carr's favorite weapon outside of Alvin Kamara. Now, Chris Olave had a great game this past weekend, which I was kind of surprised. I thought it was going to be a little bit tougher matchup, but he looked good. I still like Rashod Shaheed a lot. Another receiver I like is Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's available in only 21% of leagues, but I wanted to mention him. And week 2's performance for JSN is exactly what everyone thought he would be like week in and week out when he got drafted. A premier wide receiver coming out of college, and he just wasn't quite there. And I don't know if it was Seattle just not scheming properly, but he saw 14 targets in week 2 and had 12 receptions. He looked amazing against Denver. And if this Seattle offense can truly open up and really allow Geno Smith to throw like he did a couple years ago, JSN, DK Metcalf, like this whole offense is going to look amazing. And both of those receivers, and maybe even including Lockett, could end up being top receivers, wide receiver 2s, maybe low and wide receiver 1s for DK in this. So again, JSN absolutely should be grabbed. In fact, if he can really truly become what we all had hoped, and this was a sign in week 2, I'd love it. Another receiver is Quinton Johnson, another young receiver for the Chargers, 94% available in leagues. Now, Johnson has only seen 11 targets in 2 games, but has shown some flashes of the first-round talent that the Chargers had expected. Look, the Chargers offense, not a throw-first offense. The receivers obviously aren't going to see double-digit targets. They're going to have 6 to 7 targets, maybe 8 if you're stretching it. So Johnston's really worth grabbing in deeper leagues, or if you're in rosters that have three wide receivers, 2 flexes, something like that, then maybe, Quinton Johnston's someone you might have grabbed. But I want to mention him because, again, in deeper leagues, you want to have him. And the fact is maybe this Chargers offense is going to start actually utilizing him. He looked really good in week 2. He actually showed the flashes. He made the big plays. He didn't drop the catches that he's had done in the past. So I really like him a lot. Another receiver you may want to consider is Jaylen Naylor. For the Vikings. He's available in 99% of leagues. Look, Naylor has scored a touchdown in each game so far this season for the Vikings, and he stepped up big against a really tough 49ers defense this past weekend. Now, with Addison out and the injury that Justin Jefferson occurred, maybe Naylor could continue some of that success. Now, there's a disclaimer. It is that Justin Jefferson does not think he's going to miss any time. And of course, Jordan Addison is expected back in week 3. The biggest thing is if you got to keep an eye on the Addison report. If he does miss game time again, the Naylor obviously is going to be a great little factor. You could possibly put him as a nice little sleeper flex and put him in there because he has had some success. Do I expect Addison back? Yeah. So Naylor is one of those with a question mark type of things. But if you can grab him, if you're in a deeper league, maybe he's worth a stash. But I had to mention him because he's had some really good games so far, at least in the touchdown aspect. Another wide receiver is Jerry Jeudy for the Browns. He's available in 59% of Yahoo leagues. Jeudy has seen similar targets just like his counterpart Amari Cooper, but has had better success. Right now, Jeudy is seeing 7 targets a game, but has had success taking advantage of those receptions, currently averaging just under 12 points a game. Jeudy's definitely worth stashing in deeper leagues. He's worth stashing in, the flex play if you need to. Bye weeks are going to be here before you know it. They've got some early bye weeks this NFL season. So Jeudy's definitely someone you may want to consider just because it seems to be he's getting plenty of targets. He's getting very similar targets like Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper's dropped some big catches. Maybe Deshaun Watson starts to look to Jeudy's way a little bit more. We'll see how things play out, but I like him as a nice little play. And the last wide receiver, which I think is going to be a big one, is going to be Demarcus Robinson for the Rams. He's available in 58% of leagues. Devastating news for the Rams. Cooper Kupp is expected to go on IR or at least miss a few games, and they already have Puka obviously on IR. This leaves the receiving game to Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, Whittington, like the wide receiver core that no one had expected for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, Robinson looks to be the favorite for Stafford during this injury concerns, and I think he's going to get plenty of targets his way. Do I expect Robinson to be a wide receiver 1? No. Do I expect him to be even a wide receiver 2? Possibly. That's probably his biggest ceiling. I think his floor is more still wide receiver 3. I do think this offense is going to change drastically for the Los Angeles Rams. I think Kyren Williams is going to be used as much as they can if they don't get behind. And I do think Blake Corum's value is going to go up a little bit more just because I think they're going to have to use both backs to try to keep this game close on any game that they have. So losing Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua is not the way the Rams wanted to see. And unfortunately, a lot of you folks who've got him on your team, again, just devastating news. Now, jumping into the tight end position, I've got Hunter Henry as a nice little grab, 76% available. And right now, we're talking the tight end 5 for the season. Like, he's tight end 5 right now. I said that correctly. Hunter Henry is currently averaging over 11 points a game and has the second most targets for a tight end so far this season, and number 1 on the New England Patriots. Henry has supplanted himself as obviously Jacoby Brissett's go-to, especially for a first down and that safety factor. The fact is, Henry is still available in most leagues because his name, obviously he's not a big name, and sometimes he has played inconsistent, but the fact is he's still available. You should be grabbing him. Another tight end you should really consider is Jonnu Smith. He's available in 94% of leagues, and he's had a very solid game in Thursday's game, but nothing obviously to wow you. Reason I mention him is because with Tua out, the tight end position typically becomes the backup's favorite target. So look for Skylar Thompson to possibly throw to him. I still also believe with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle there, and those guys having the ability to stretch the field, still opens up things for Jonnu Smith. So if Thursday's game is any indication of what this season could look like for him, he's definitely somebody you want to possibly grab for your roster. And the last player as far as the tight end goes is going to be Mike Gesicki for the Bengals. He's available in 96% of leagues. And just so you know, Gesicki right now is currently tight end 6 for the season in fantasy. Great option, obviously, for Burrow. Burrow seems to love him so far and has seen 13 targets in 2 games while Higgins is out. Now, Gesicki is definitely going to take advantage of that, and he's been taking advantage since Higgins has been out. Now, if Higgins does come back, Gesicki's value still might change a little bit. I don't think so. I think actually Gesicki's going to be a very strong value. I think he kind of takes over that old Tyler Boyd role for the Bengals that was there in the past, even if with Higgins coming back. So do his targets lower a little bit? Maybe. I still think he's going to be around that 6 to 7 target aspect. And I think Gesicki, again, could squeak into the top 10 based off of that. Sometimes you got to understand tight end position, as well as it was last season, has changed this season so far. I know it's 2 games. We'll see how things play out. But some of the big names are kind of shocking people. They're not there, right? Kelsey hasn't performed well. Laporta hasn't performed well. Mark Andrews hasn't performed well. So now you got tight ends like Gesicki and Hunter Henry that are actually in the top 10 are still available because people are afraid to drop these big names. I'm not saying drop Kelsey. I'm not saying drop Laporta. But if you have some roster space, you may want to grab one of these tight ends to help you out with your fantasy. Now, I'm going to do some kickers. Nothing crazy. I do want to mention Matt Prater and obviously Jason Myers, both available above 90% in leagues. And I think they both have the ability to obviously get plenty of points, 8 to 10 points pretty consistently. So the fact that they're available and still in most leagues, I would consider grabbing them. So that's my week 3 waiver wire grab. Make sure you guys are obviously paying attention to this list. Make sure you guys obviously subscribe to the channel as well. We'll be dropping our start and sit videos throughout the week to get you guys ready. We'll also start putting out some dynasty content, probably about week 3 or 4, most likely week 4, just to kind of get things pushed through. But I will be putting out dynasty content as well to get you guys ready for that. Again, if you guys haven't already, subscribe, like, and I'll check you guys out next time.